Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Maddie. I am an NPC bikini competitor and online holistic lifestyle and contest prep coach. And this week we have a very special video that we're bringing to you. I actually had the opportunity to interview one of my very successful clients who I've been working with for just over a year now. We worked together through an off season as she came out of her own dieting phase into a reverse into maintenance, which I like to call our pre-prep phase, and then we prepped her for a contest. Her name is Jolie Price, and she just offers such a unique perspective, but not an uncommon situation. She's a mom, she's busy, she's very involved, but just always had the dream of competing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this video. It's a long one. You might have to break it up into cardio sessions, but I really hope that you guys find some valuable insight, nuggets, and takeaways in here, and certainly that it continues to inspire you on your journey. So, hello YouTube. Today we are on with Miss Jolie Price. She has been working with us for, you said it's like a year?
It's been a year. I know. I think we thought originally it was 2, but it's been 1 year.
1 year. All right. So she's been with us for a year, and we initially started working together as Jolie was coming out of her own kind of self-directed cut, went into a pre-prep phase, which is what I like to call it, really focused on me getting a full understanding of just her day-to-day routine, her life, with the goal of eventually stepping up on stage, which is what we did, I would say, pretty successfully.
We did.
So as we kind of get started, I just wanted to begin just with a few introductory questions. You guys have probably seen Jolie on my Instagram and YouTube or Instagram. But tell me about yourself. How old are you? Where are you from? Talk to me about your family.
Oh, so again, my name is Jolie Price, and I'm from Phoenix, but I actually live in a little town called Carefree, Arizona, and it is very carefree up here. It's one of the reasons why we love it so much. I'm 34, and I am a wife. I am a mama. I have a 6-year-old daughter. Her name is Ophelia, and we have 2 dogs, and so we are just this small little family and we're and of course I knew my dog was going to do that.
All right. So next introductory question. What do you do? Tell me about your life outside of the gym. Talk about your different involvement activities, things that you do with Ophelia.
So I am a stay-at-home mama. Well, I used to actually have my own massage therapy business. I was a massage therapist for several years and had my own studio. And so I am familiar with the whole, you know, body aspect, like physical aspect, and just muscle awareness, all of those things that go along with becoming a massage therapist. And before, like while I was actually in school, I worked in a physical therapy office and I was their technician. So I got to work with clients, firsthand on injuries. And then it worked hand in hand while I was going through school because they would allow me to do all the manipulation work on the client. So having this background and then having my own business during that time, I had several clients that were bodybuilders. And so that kind of sparked the interest. And that actually became one of my, I guess you would say like my priority clientele were bodybuilders that were wanting muscle work and deep tissue work. And, but then years went by and Rich and I got married, and then we decided to start a family. And about I think I was starting my second trimester, and I carried so much in the front, like I was just bigger on the front, and I just couldn't bend over the tables anymore. Working on my clients, and I was like, I literally just couldn't do it anymore. It just was very uncomfortable, and so we just decided that it would be time for me to retire. And if I wanted to get back into it, then I could. the certificate, the license, I could always renew the license if I wanted to get back into working. But I just always wanted to be a mom. And so I retired, and then she was born, and then our life just kind of really started. And then I just fell in love with being a mom and being home and homeschooling her. And then now, she's, well, now she's in first grade, but when she started kindergarten, I was like, okay, it's time for me to do something for me again and kind of get back into that. So when you become a mom, there's sacrifices that come along the way. And so I involved myself heavily with the school, and I'm on the PTO. I currently run the library as a library director at the school. And so outside of bodybuilding, I have lots of hats that I wear. But
Yeah.
all good things, all good things. And so life is good. And so that's where I'm at right now. I'm just still, being a mom, and I've had my toes dipped in many different areas of
I was going to say, I
many
think a
different
lot of
things.
times people think that being a stay-at-home mom is like the world's easiest job. But in working just with you alone, no, I'm just kidding. But I really do know there's so much that goes into that, especially since you do find these voids, right, of time in your day-to-day that you look to fill, and you look to fill with means of fulfillment. And that a lot of times means actually taking on more than you would in a conventional 9 to 5.
Yes, 1000%. And I think that last year in particular, because my daughter was going into kindergarten, it's like you have all of these feelings of, okay, like, what am I going to do with my time? Like, you lose a little bit of your self identity when you become a mom, just because you're having to find yourself, you're having to find this whole new role as a mother. And then you're trying to navigate, oh wait, okay, I'm also a wife. And then, but wait, what happens when they go to school? Like, this little one has been with me for 5 years, 100% of the time, and now what? Like, what am I going to do with all this time? So it's like you just kind of fill all these spots, and then before you know it, you're overloaded with all of these things, and you're like, wait, I don't even have time to vacuum my house anymore.
Right. Right.
So, and that's kind of what I was constantly saying yes to all of these things last year. And then life outside of school and PTO was getting more and more hectic as the year went on, because I started prep, and like we were in the middle of building a house. We moved into our house 1 week before my first show.
Yeah.
Like, it was insane. It was totally insane.
We'll definitely touch on that. But
yeah, we will. But yeah,
Crazy.
so it's like all of these things, like I said, it's like you have to learn balance. And it's I feel like finally I'm at a spot where I'm like, okay, I can create balance now.
What guided you to work with our team and to work with me specifically? There had to have been a catalyst, obviously, after Ophelia was in school and coming out of school, that kind of, I know you went through that little cut, and then
Yeah.
it was like, okay, it's time to pull Trig on a coach.
Yeah. So, I mean, throughout, of course, our life, we go through periods where we're up and down with weight and all these things. And so it was really when I had my daughter, after she was born, I was like, okay, like, I'm looking at this as like a reset. And I waited, the 6 weeks postpartum, like, when can I start working out again? And so I found, this program, and what I loved about it was that there was a nutrition plan, but I was able to follow the nutrition plan and the workouts while at home. I could work out at home. We had a pretty good, gym set up at the house where I could, set her up, and I could work out while I'm watching her. And it's like, you just kind of fit it in at the time. And then, but the nutrition plans, where the food was great and it was all laid out for you. So for me, I was like, oh, okay, like, I can do this. But and then I did that for 5 years, and I was able to change the way my body composition was, postpartum. I was what I considered to be in the best shape that I was in pre-pregnancy. And it kind of just, you go through these periods and it's like, oh, maybe I'll try being vegan, or maybe I'll try this workout and this nutrition plan instead, and see how I like these recipes. So it was like you're kind of playing. I mean, we play Tetris, on the fitness app now, like when we're tracking our macros, but it's almost like all of these, you're trying all these things and you're trying to find what works, but eventually you just hit that plateau and you're like, okay, well, why can't I see any more progress? Like, I've gotten myself this far. I've lost 40 pounds. I've lost more than what I gained baby weight wise. So I think I gained 40 pounds during my pregnancy and I lost 50, but it just kind of stopped. And I was like, well, what am I missing here? And so that I was thinking, I was like, you know what? She's going to be going to kindergarten. I've always said I wanted to be, I wanted to try a competition. So maybe now's the time. And I don't even remember how I found you. You just like
on
popped up.
Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, you just popped up on Facebook one day, and I was like, oh, who's this chick? Like, she's really fun. Like, she's young, she's bubbly. And then I like really started kind of following your story. I think I was following you for like a couple of months. And I just loved your dedication, and you just had this drive that I saw in myself. And I know there's like a 10-year difference between us. And I was like, okay, I guess I could find somebody here if I really wanted to that was local. But I just fell in love with you. And I was like, this girl knows her stuff. And you were just so intriguing. And I was like, I'm just going to reach out and, kind of see what happens. And so then that's when I reached out to you. And, but no, it was truly your passion for the sport. And then I listened to your story, and how you have, grown so much over the years from your past experiences. And I was just like, wow, like, she's really, really inspiring. And, it felt right to reach out to you. And that's all I can really say. It's just like, I just had this connection to you, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try, see what this is about. We had a great discovery call, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I think it's so funny how we oftentimes are so quick to like, opt for convenience, whether that is affordability of a certain coach or whether that is proximity. And these are all important things, but I certainly have worked with coaches that are maybe more convenient than others. And I will say that at the end of the day, what it does come down to is a connection, especially when you're talking about something like a contest prep, or you're really trying to get the most out of coaching. You want to make sure that you have a coach that is also taking the time to get to know the important variables, such as Ophelia, such as your stressors and your day-to-day, and that you can confide in like a friend.
Yeah, 100%. And when we were having that discovery call, it felt like it was just so natural talking to you. Like, I was like, I feel like I've known this girl for a really, really long time, but I've never talked to you before. It was like, okay, like, I'm going to spill all this stuff out to you, and like, I hope you don't judge me. And there was no judgment. I loved that you were just so open to hearing like what I had to say and what my story was. And it was like you always, anytime I talk to you, you always make me feel like I'm the only person, or the only client that you have.
Aww.
And I'm like, I don't, oh, stop it. But no, but that's the truth. And it's like, when you find someone that you can connect with, like, having a coach is supposed to be, it's supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be hard. You're not supposed to be like, fighting like on tit for tat type of things. Like, it's just supposed to be this friendship that develops. And you and I feel have, besides just like having a coach, relationship,
Yeah.
we've developed a true friendship. And I'm like, she's like my little sister, but she's also like my big sister, because she tells her what to do.
That's an interesting relation. It's an interesting dynamic, but that's the best way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you're very straightforward and to the point. And it's like, I know that I can like tell you things, and you're like, no, Jolie, like, let's do this. Like, there's just so many different circumstances, but but you say it with such grace that I can take constructive criticism pretty well, and I've just never been like offended and being like, oh well, that was like, like screw her, like I'm gonna do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Never been that way with you, and I can probably say like I've come across lots of people that try to tell me something, and I'm like, no.
Yeah. Well, I
So
mean, I think it's important that you respect your coach's authority in that, like, this is what they do for a living. Like they often they have to have some sort of skin in the game, right?
yeah,
But beyond that, I also think it's important that you're heard and seen and valued, and you feel that, because you're more
yeah,
likely to respond to them in a way that's like, let me listen to what they really have to say and let me digest this, so
yeah,
that you can make informed decisions. Like, I
yeah,
never like to jump the gun and make decisions for my clients, but I like for them to be informed on option A and the opportunity costs associated in option B.
yeah.
Um, and then we go from there. So
Exactly. We can do that by being open with each other. And you
yeah,
have to be honest and and tell your coach like exactly what's going on. The good, the bad, the ugly, the good, like the happy. And then we can work as a team and make an educated decision
yeah,
together. That's like you have to be open and willing to do that as the client. If you're not, then you're not with the right person, or you shouldn't be going that
right, right.
route.
And that is Empowered Fitness. Talk to
So
you guys. I'm kidding. So let's start talking about some of the nitty gritty with you. I know a
yeah.
lot of people are really interested in regards to your journey specifically, because it's been seemingly so picture perfect. But I want to talk, yeah, right. I want to talk about before we even started prepping. I have a couple
Mhm.
questions for you. So, first question is, when you began entertaining the idea of prep, in competing, what were your biggest concerns? I know one of the things that you thought about was, what your daughter saw, maybe what other parents saw, time management, maybe age.
You know, age never really was a factor for me.
Yeah, you look like you're
Um,
12, but
People are very surprised when I say I'm 34. They're like, "No, you're not." And I was like, "No, I really am. Like, here's my driver's license." Yeah, age was never really a factor. I was concerned. I mean, I know that it's like I was kind of like at that almost 35 spot, like where I could was like almost a master, and then but I'm also like on the older end of the spectrum of the open class. Like I was like, I can't compete in the mastery yet, so my only place to go is the open.
Mhm.
um and then true novice and novice, because this was my first time competing. But so for me it was like, once you're backstage and you're seeing like all these 21-year-olds with these perfect bodies that clearly have not had any children. And then you're like standing there and you're like, okay, this is where I am at. And I just sit there and embrace it. And uh, it's just a learning experience, the whole entire thing. But one of my biggest fears was, what was my daughter going to think, or how was she going to perceive what I was doing? Is she going to take this and kind of see it in a negative way that might portray onto her and how she views herself and her body? Because science, there's things out there that say like children and girls specifically between like around 6 7, that's when they can start seeing their bodies and viewing themselves in a negative way. And she's kind of hitting that age where I'm like, okay, this is what I do is going to be a positive impact, or it can be a negative impact, and I don't want it to be a negative impact. So I'm very careful to what I say around her in regards to my body, and never ever talk about how much I weigh that day. I never will say out loud, especially in my reverse, how I'm feeling, or if I'm feeling kind of crappy today, or all the things that you feel in the reverse, especially like you feel fluffy, like, oh, that's really hard. You kind of feel down on yourself sometimes. I can talk about those things with my husband. He's very open and he's willing to have those conversations with me. I can talk about it with you, but I will not ever say anything like that in front of her, because I don't want her to look at herself in the mirror and or look at her body and and say, well, maybe I look like that. Or so I've twisted it to where all I'm saying are positive things about myself, and in the end it helps me too.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's probably a benefit to you too, because it's something you're forcing yourself to say those positive affirmations
Mhm.
and to
Exactly.
affirm and acknowledge the growth, right? The things that we talk about that you focus on in a reverse. Um,
Exactly.
and then I know too, also like time management was something that you might have been concerned about leading into prep.
Yeah, I guess not so much at the beginning because I kind of was just like school had just started,
Mm-hmm.
and but I just like dove into it, and I didn't realize um all these things that I had signed up for with the school. I mean, it was kind of like in October, things were just starting to kind of progress. And I didn't realize all the things that I signed up for and how busy I was actually going to be. So at the time when I signed up to do this, I was like, oh, okay, like I can totally make this work. I'm already like prepping my meals, and that was like second nature to me.
Yeah.
It was when we were getting along and like it actually into prep, I was like, holy cow, like I have to make all this work. Plus I'm building a house, plus we're gonna be moving. And it's like I would leave the house and I would not come home. I would not go back home. I would just go to the gym, and then I would go do what I had to do at the school and then go back, and I would just walk or get my cardio in, and then I would go back to school or go run through my. And I mean, I would leave at 8:30 in the morning and not get home until 6 if she had an activity after school. So time management, I mean, I made it work.
Yeah.
Granted, the cortisol levels were probably a lot higher than we wanted them to
I
be.
was gonna say, I do have a later question that's about
Yeah.
how you made it work, but I think now is kind of an opportune time for us to just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I
You
agree.
talked about how you would leave the house and not come back. And I think that this is kind of an apply all, even to lifestyle clients, right? Like sometimes you have to change your routine and how you prep for the day and the things you leave with when you want a different outcome. On a small scale, this may just be a client that travels and does sales in their car and is in the car for 6 or 7 hours out of the day. There is no more going to Wendy's or Chipotle just on a whim if you're tracking
No,
macros.
no.
Um, so for somebody like you, it's not that it's impossible. You clearly had so much to do. You talked about being out of the house for 11 to 12 hours out of the day. But what this
Mhm.
meant was the night before, you were figuring out, okay, tomorrow I have an hour of cardio. I'm going to get this done at X time. Tomorrow
Yes.
I am going to be gone for meals 1 through 4. I need to pack them with me in a cooler. Um,
Yep.
and I almost think that going into it with that sort of plan in place and then having the plan, so you're going to be successful, but then staying busy can actually work to your benefit. Like you're distracted,
Yeah.
you're not hungry as much.
100%, because the hunger comes with it, and very much so when you're in prep. But I used being busy to my advantage, and you were like, "Okay, well, you got to hit 10 steps," and I was like, "That's not a problem."
Yeah.
Like 10,000 steps. I think I said 10, but I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, yeah, no problem." I think I was averaging like 13 to 14,000 steps a day, like
Yeah.
especially when I was moving. But you have to have a plan.
Yeah.
There is no cheating when it comes to prep in any way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. You got to get this in. And so if you're dedicated enough, you're gonna fit it in. Whether you get it done right when you wake up in the morning because you know you have a busy day, you have to write things down. And I would literally write out my meals and be like, okay, this is what I'm gonna pack for tomorrow because I know I'm gone. And I had a big cooler that I would take with me. It was in my car. I brought it inside of school. I would eat. I would eat in the closet sometimes at school just because
Yeah.
I'm like, I have to eat. It's my time
Well,
to
I think
eat. So,
I think even for lifestyle clients, like
yeah,
it's the whole thought and misperception that like, oh, I can just wing it today.
no,
Like there is no winging it ever. And I will say it takes a little bit more work on the front end to devise that plan, right? To like pre-log stuff in MyFitnessPal or to look ahead at your schedule and plan out that tomorrow you're going to have an earlier morning than you'd like. But
yeah,
when you have that plan in place, it's a surefire way to reach your goal. Like
It makes it so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, next question for you. How do you think that you benefited from working with a coach we worked together for like 8 months, 9 months maybe, before you prepped?
Well, when I reached out to you initially, I said, "Hey, I wanna do a show," and you were like, "Well, this is what I think we should do instead." Your calories are low or are very low right now. You're not eating enough carbs. And I was the typical, I'm doing HIIT training 6 days a week. I'm not eating enough carbs. I don't believe in carbs. Like, not I don't think I was even eating enough protein or fats. Like everything was just on the low end where
Yeah.
I was so high activity. And you said, well, if I put you into prep right now, this is what's going to happen. And so maybe you can touch more on what exactly would happen if I went into prep. But from that moment, so if you want to elaborate
Yeah.
on what.
So basically, I mean, what we know what happens is when you're in that mismatch of energy balance, right? You're consuming such a low amount of food and you're doing so much activity, your whole body finds homeostasis in there. So your metabolism is going to downregulate. It's going to get smart and efficient. It's going to burn through less food. So if your starting calories are here as opposed to up here, I only have here to work with. They're going to have to get exponentially lower than what they would had we nursed that metabolic health back up to speed and tapped into what your true metabolic potential is. Furthermore, because that metabolism is slower, and your energy is quite low, like you might find that you're able to get through a HIIT session every single day, but that HIIT session takes it out of you. So you're spending more time not moving. Like maybe when you're volunteering in the library, instead of squatting down and standing up and squatting down and standing up, you're getting a chair and you're just sitting in the chair and organizing books. So you'll find that you're less active in general. So you're actually burning through less food. And then weight loss was just going to be slower because your body was already in this, like, think of a bear going into hibernation for the winter. It was in this state. So when you've been in that deficit for so long, you did lose body fat. You were like maintaining your weight at that point, I think, or maybe losing, but slower. You don't just lose body fat. You also lose muscle. And we know muscle is the metabolically active tissue. So where I like to see clients start a prep is with a solid foundation of muscle, with the most amount of muscle that they're going to have at that peak pinnacle in their kind of like athletic career or term or phase, if you will. That way, when we shave off the body fat, there's something to see. You don't just look skinny fat, because we have to account for the fact that, yeah, you might have lost, if you had 10 pounds to lose, 60% of your body fat, but you also lost 40% of that 10 pounds was muscle.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what would have happened if we decided to go into prep right then and there. And so you suggested, hey, let's reverse your diet. Let's get you back up to maintenance. And let's put you in a little bit of a surplus and put on some muscle. And then we did that for I think like 3 to 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Because I started prepping in March. And I could have been like, no, I don't want to do that. But again, I had such a connection with you. I was like, okay, I'm going to trust what she's saying. If I'm going to invest X amount of money and all this time and all this dedication, why not play the smart game?
Yeah.
And do it how my coach is telling me, is like how she's telling me to do this. Like, what do I have to lose? I want to do this the right way because I want to see what my body can do. At the time, it was like, oh yeah, this is something I always wanted to do. It's kind of like a bucket list type of thing. And then throughout the process, I was like, oh, whoa, my body is like totally changing. We lost weight during my reverse.
Yeah.
I think we went down like about 5 to 6 pounds or so before I even started cutting. And it gave you the chance to learn my metabolism, to learn how my body worked. And then we started cutting, and then we did a mock peak week, and we did all these things to learn how my body was going to adapt before putting me into like an official peak week. And I mean, we had another peak week to do 2 weeks later. So it
Yeah.
was like we had all these and I feel like, of course, throughout every show, every show is going to be different. And we're going to be learning so much about what my body is going to do best with, what my body looks better, weight wise or muscle wise. Like, do we want to be softer here or tighter here? There's all these things that we're going to learn as we go. But just having that time before prepping was essential to the success of my first and second show.
I think so.
1000%.
There's so many tools in our toolkit for that.
So many.
By the way, we have 7 minutes left on recording of this Zoom call, so I'll have to end it and start another one.
Okay.
For you, but we will do one more question before we wrap up this one.
Perfect.
Okay, so next question for you. How did you overcome your fears of diving into the world of competing, given a few factors, your obligations outside of competing, and also your previous dieting history?
So, I'm the type of person that it's like when I make up my mind to do something, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. Like I'm 100% committed. And my husband told me this too. He was like, if anybody's going to do this, Jolie, it's going to be you. He's like, when you set your mind to something, like you're gonna do it, you're gonna give it your all. And like I said, I'm just gonna dive in head first because then there's no turning back. And during that process, it doesn't matter what age you are, or you can still go out there and you can give it your best. And I went up against 20-year-olds and I was like, oh, I'm competing against like 12, 13 other women who are all in their 20s. And I got a medal. Like, like to me, I was like, don't think I would have ever, I mean, I don't know what I would have been capable of if I didn't have that mindset, but it just kind of, I don't know. It's just like I had this like will and this power to do it. But what surprised me the most is that I learned so much about myself during this process. And what I learned was that I actually had all these food aversions that I kind of always knew that I had them, but I never really accepted the fact that I had them. And then now I'm thinking back and I'm like, oh, like I remember when I was 19 years old and I was doing this and I was like, what? It was so unhealthy. And you come to the realization that you didn't have a healthy relationship with food. But going through the reversing process and seeing what my body was actually capable of doing while reversing it, I'm like, oh, wow, carbs are actually feeling really good. Like my body is feeling really, really good right now. I have the energy that I didn't have. Oh, my labs are in a really good place now because I'm actually eating more food. I'm not afraid of the food that I'm eating. And I had this experience, going through prep, everything gets depleted. And then now as you're reversing, I had this experience with my daughter and the story because I talked to you about this. We went out to dinner with some friends or with my family, my sister and her 2 kids. And we went to the sugar factory after. And she's, picking out the candy and she's like, Mommy, do you want any? And she's like, it's okay, you don't have to. And because that's what I would always say. I would say, no, I don't want to have any candy, it's okay. Mommy doesn't really like that one. And I just would always say that and I'm not realizing that like I was actually afraid to eat it.
Yeah.
Because I was afraid that, I was going to gain weight or it was going to do something bad to my body. And when I said yes, because it made me like so emotional. When I said yes to her, she like lit up and was like, Mom, you're gonna have some candy. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh my God, she thought it was Christmas morning.
Yeah.
Or her birthday. Like she was so excited that Mommy was gonna have some candy with her. And I did, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this actually is so much, like I hadn't had candy in probably over 10 years. Like that's
Yeah.
how long it had been And for her to just for us to just be able to experience that together, it might seem so silly and so small to somebody else who doesn't have those, those food aversions or the fear of eating something. Um, it might seem so small to them, but to me, that was like a huge realization, like that, wow, like I've actually overcome this,
Yeah.
this past, this thing that was always inside of me. And I'm able to experience that with her and show her, like, yeah, you know what? It's okay to have these things because ultimately, I don't want her to have those fears either. I want to be her inspiration. And,
Well, and the
um,
reality is too, she sees you eating a 90% clean whole diet, right? Your
yeah.
whole diet is not like filthy food. So I think that the awful thing is that competing gets such a bad rap for all the disordered eating that it creates, but it's actually what pulled me out of my eating disorder myself. I had a friend today in the gym ask me, "What are your calories at?" And I honestly couldn't even tell them because my mind doesn't even think in calories anymore. I know how many carbs, how many fats and proteins I'm having.
Right.
Like I couldn't tell you if I'm at 1800 or 2500. Like I honestly have no idea. And
Yeah.
so I think it really helps us to see, like, yeah, we know that we may feel a spike of sugar from a starburst and a longer period of energy from a sweet potato with the skin. But aside from that, it really does help us to detach from, okay, I can have 10 grams of carbs here and maybe I'll go into a little bit of a surplus and tomorrow's pump will be really good. Like,
Exactly.
it helps us to shift that a lot of
Mhm.
those preconceived notions that we have about bad foods.
Yeah, it does. And it goes going back to what you said about I'm gonna have a good pump tomorrow. It it's like, okay, like I can enjoy this right now and I'm not gonna have any freaking food guilt about this. I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna be present and I'm gonna eat this froyo, like with my, froyo and gummies on top because I can. And I know I'm gonna have a good life session tomorrow. And it's like sometimes it's good for your soul.
Yeah.
And
So, first question for you here. We have quite a few questions for prep, so just prepare
yeah.
yourself. In prep, we navigated things from a biopsy, the move, birthday parties, and so much more. How did we navigate, in your opinion, through these things effortlessly? Because I really think we did it. I mean, we took it in stride.
Yeah. And there were many, 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 many hard days. I mean, you just talked about, I had to we struggle with a biopsy. I did have a cancer scare,
Mhm.
like right before we started prep. And I had to wait 6 weeks to get those results. And I only got one of the results back. And so it was like the one that we wanted to be the good result was what we got, but we had to go back and 6 months later and do another rebiopsy, which came back fine as well. But it's like huge thing over your head while you're trying to do do something like prep. I do think back and I'm like, how the heck did I do all of this? Like really, truly. And I surprised myself because there were just so many things. And moving is a huge life change as well. And we built our house. So it was just like there were all of these moving parts. And again, it did probably benefit me in the end. But now I think about it and I'm like, I was not able to do these things if I did not write it down, especially when you talk about prep brain. Like you're very forgetful. And um, if I wasn't writing something down, it didn't happen. It
I
was not
think
happening.
something too, I'm not trying to diss or knock any sort of like big name coaches because there's a lot of good big name coaches out there. But I
Yeah.
think that in the fact that I have a little bit more capacity because it's just me running this show. I only take on what I can handle and I take on people too that I have a connection with. And so I think I mean, we had calls. I remember vividly sitting in my living room posing with you in a bikini and we were both on the phone, like crying together. And it was like, we have cried together. We've shared things together. And
Mhm.
I think it's important that you have a coach, just going back to that trust mechanism. that you can tell, like, I have a birthday party, I have a move, I have this non-negotiable, so that we could have a plan in place. I think there were probably some events where we might have incorporated like a diet break or a refeed, and we could be strategic
Yeah.
about those things, as opposed to you kind of cutting corners and doing it and saying you followed protocol and the scale is up or whatever, might have happened.
Yeah, we did that, I think, like 3 weeks before my first show. I was like, well, it's my daughter's last day of school and we really want to go to the Great Wolf Lodge, and I like, go have a nice meal with your family. And I was like, okay, of course, not going overboard. I did bring my scale with me and make sure I had no oils added, all the things that you do when you're in prep, but just to be able to go out and like, and again, like have that trust factor and be like, hey, like this is what's going on. How can I make this happen while also not going off the rails here?
All right. So this is a perfect segue into question number 2, which is, what things kept you sane during prep? So here you can elaborate on things like your routine. Maybe you started saying no to some stuff. Boundaries.
Yeah. Oh, boundaries became my word. That was my my word at the beginning of the year. As soon as 2023 hit, I was like, I need to have some boundaries here, and I had to create a new routine with going into prep. But it's also become my new routine. Like my routine never actually really stopped. I'm still getting up at 4:45 in the morning, so that way I can have that me time when before my daughter gets up at 7:30, and I'm like, oh, I have 2.5 to maybe sometimes 3 hours to myself in the morning, where I was able to do an hour upstairs, and with nobody waking up, and prep my meals if I need to prep my meals. If I didn't get it done the day before, it's just creating that routine. And I knew, hey, Sundays and Wednesdays, I have a free time here. I'm going to prep my food. I just had, we had to go run and get the sweet potatoes out of the oven. It's not Wednesday, but I think that's why I was off my routine, Maddie.
Yeah. Well, and I think too that, touching on routine, I was talking to a client about this the other day. We never wake up in the morning, even as a coach, and think like, oh yeah, I get to go train legs at 6 a.m. This is what I want to start my day with. Nobody wants to do that. But I will say that when you do a little bit of a cost versus benefit analysis, and you put them on a T-chart and you're looking at them side by side, to sort of eat the frog, like to have that time uninterrupted in the morning. It's not easy getting up at 4:45, but the payoff is so worth it, because now you're not staying up until 10, 11 trying to get it done after the kids go to sleep.
Yeah. Yes, I'm able to go to bed at 8:30 with my daughter. Like it's pretty hard for me to like not go to sleep after we read a book and I get her to bed and I just lay there with her, because I'm the mom that lays down with my kids every night and goes to bed with her. And I mean, that's my life. That's my routine. And that helps me be able to get up at 4:45. Granted, I'm sleeping a lot better now that I'm not in prep. And like prep, I think I was getting like 6 hours of sleep. I just couldn't sleep any more than that. You just get crappy sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, it just comes along with it when you're in prep. And now you're like, oh, I'm eating all this food and it benefits you, and you're able to sleep a little bit longer and you're getting 8 hours, and you're like, well, feels great. I feel so great. I can get up and I can go do whatever I need to do. But just having that, creating that me time, especially for the moms out there, like it is key. If I don't have that, my day is so much harder. It totally throws me off. Like it's just having that routine is key to the success, no matter if you are prepping for shows or if you're doing, or for just your lifestyle.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Ready for the next one?
Yeah.
How do you think your prepping experience differs from others in that you are actually able to enjoy quite a bit of it? Like maybe like talking about how you were truly present in that moment. So even when times were tough, I remember you saying, I can see myself doing this again. It kind of turned from a bucket list thing to a long-term goal for you.
Yeah, it did. I remember texting you after I got off stage from not even after finals. It was right after prejudging, and I was like, "So when's my next show?"
Mhm.
And you were like, you were so cute. You were like, "Okay, well, we can talk about that later. Let's just get you through the first show." And I was like, I don't even care. Like this, I was having the best time. I never thought that I was going to be having this much fun. Like this whole process, even though it wasn't like prepping itself was not the stressor for me. It was all of the outside factors. I mean, of course, there's always going to be stress in our life, no matter what. But those big factors are not going to be happening. And I'm like, wow, but the next prep, I hope it's going to be a lot easier, and it should be. So I'm hoping that we can do a lot more than
Yeah.
what we did. My first show is like, I just want to bring a better version of myself, a better package of myself. I want to see how much more can I do? How much more can I push my body? I pushed it pretty freaking far, as
Yeah.
we all do in prep. And you're like, I can do a little bit more. It's you surprise yourself
Mhm.
um during these processes, and it's just like it's you just I anybody who asks me about these shows, they're like, well, how hard is it? And I was like, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's really hard,
Yeah.
but are you willing to try? Like, are
Yeah.
you willing to dedicate yourself to doing something? And I almost feel like everybody should just do like one show, just to say, just so they can see what they can put themselves through. Because I don't think that I've ever worked as hard and dedicated myself to something this much than I like it in any other aspect of my life. Really, truly, besides being a parent.
Yeah, it's a
But
character builder, that's for sure. It's
it
not
is
always about
because
the physique.
yeah, I mean, you're gonna have good shows, you're gonna have not so good shows, you're gonna question and doubt yourself. You have to really dig deep to push yourself to those limits, and that's something that I've always inspired. Like I felt so much inspiration from you because you've been through so many shows where there's been a lot of ups and downs, and your physique has changed significantly from one show to the end of your season, and how you're adapting now. Like you're the best that I've ever seen you look. I mean, just through and it's amazing what you have done. And so I'm just really inspired by you. Like I look at you and
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
mean,
that's
I will say surrounding yourself with people that you are inspired by, whether that's me, thank you, or somebody
Mhm.
else, just this community, keeping those people close to you, whether that's on social media or in
Yeah,
in your sphere of influence is important.
yeah. And I didn't think that I was gonna make. I mean, I went into the shows not really knowing anybody. I knew one other gal, and so her and I kind of hung out backstage. But I mean, it was like I made these new friendships, and I'm like, wow, these women are truly incredible and so inspiring in each and every way. And it's so nice to have a community of women that are going through the same thing. Like we all have different journeys, but in the end, we've all worked our butt off to be right here backstage together, and we are going to empower each other. And they're truly your biggest cheerleaders backstage. And I was like, this is you go into it and you think, okay, like how catty is it going to be?
Yeah, yeah, I
And
remember
it
that
wasn't
feeling
like
too.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't like that at all. And I was like, oh my God, I've made like so many new friends. And it's great because now most of us are going through the reverse, and including yourself. And we're in this off season, and we're all able to kind of do this together again and get ready for next season. So just to be able to have these other women to bounce, the good days, the bad days, like, oh, how are you feeling today? Well, honestly, this is what's going on with me. And um and and you're able to just communicate, and they truly know and understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could tell my husband, this is what I'm feeling, and sometimes he's like, you're a little crazy, and I'm like, but
Yeah.
no, this is really what's going on.
Yeah. You're like, but
um
you don't see the fact that my love handle right here. You see that centimeter? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, there's just they don't get it, and that's okay. You're not asking them to get it, especially if they're not competing with you, your significant others. I'm trying though. I'm trying.
Rich to get up there on stage.
We're working on
Once you get that
it.
overall. All right. What did your diet look like in prep? I think that this is something where I kind of want to emphasize once again the importance of a pre-prep phase.
Yeah.
To talk about what your diet looked like, and like not specifically like, oh, I had 60 grams of rice at this meal, but how did that, before you prepped, I have a lot of girls that come to me and they want to just hit the stage, but without I really need to fully understand which foods work for you. I need to understand how your body responds to a ton of vegetables. I need to understand what foods you soak up and which foods dry you out. We've got to learn how to track macros and meal timing. There's a lot to it.
There is a lot to it. And it definitely is a learning curve, and it takes time. Especially when you were trying to figure out how to count macros and do it correctly, whether it's using ounces or grams and not just saying I had half of a large avocado. Okay, well, was it this big of an avocado or was it like this big of an avocado?
Yeah.
That makes a huge significance when you're talking fats, and that's also protein and carbs in there too. So
yeah,
you have to log it correctly. It was a huge learning curve, and but it's also fun. Like
yeah.
it's a lot of fun when if you enjoy it. And now it's like I don't see myself not tracking, because I mean I can eyeball things now pretty easily if I'm not, like, if I have like an off what's it called, like a free meal, an untracked meal. I can kind of eyeball it and be like, okay, like that looks about what I would probably eat. And then there are other days where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go out and have a burger tonight and not feel guilty about it because I can. And
on plan.
but yeah, exactly. But yeah, just learning about the foods that didn't agree with you was a big one. I mean, like I always eat quinoa before going into that, and I learned that quinoa just did not sit well with me. It caused a lot of gut issues for me personally, and that was something that we kind of talked about. Also, like vegetables like broccolis and cauliflowers, and if you have some of that, you recommended having some coconut oil on it, or spray it with some coconut oil when you're cooking it, or however you decide to eat it. And there's science behind that as well. So it's all these things that, again, telling your coach, hey, I had this is how my body reacted, what do you recommend I do? And you said, hey, this is why your body reacted that way, add some coconut oil, and that should help balance it out. You're always learning. And to be open to learning about that. And that was just recently that we talked about the broccoli.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, with broccoli and stuff, sometimes it's even methods of prep, not to get on another tangent, but a lot of people who can't digest broccoli, I suggest will buy it frozen and steam it in the microwave, get it mushy. But even for, your foods, I would just say that they stayed pretty consistent from what they were before you prepped.
Yeah, definitely.
That was something that was really helpful for us, was we were able to go back, because we use a flexible dieting approach, and see just what did your day-to-day look like. I know that you have, and I'm a fiend for it now, the cocoa yo. I eat it every single day. Yeah. And so
I used to make my own. Did you know that? I didn't tell you that. I used to actually make my own cocoa yo.
Oh my God. I spend like $8 a jar on that, so I'm gonna need the recipe after this call.
I'll have to find it. I haven't made it in a while because now it's like, oh, I can just buy it in the store.
Well, yeah, for $8.99, but
yeah, I know.
But nonetheless, I mean, it was something that we knew worked really well for you. It actually helped digestion, so we kept the cocoa yo in.
And we had that up until the night before my show.
Yeah.
Without causing any issues. So, because it just worked for me.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. We won't talk about like date, or I guess we could touch on like these two questions together. So one of my questions was, did your relationship with your husband change at all during prep? And then like, how did you show up for your daughter while you were in prep? So I think the key here is like, you could touch on Rich and like what that looked like. And then how did you make sure that you were still showing up for Ophelia?
So Rich was, I mean, he was supportive from day one, truly. He, like I said, he just like, he still told me, he's like, if anybody's going to do this, it's going to be you. And I just had that, I had that mindset, and he just knew that about me, and that I would be dedicated to doing it. And, I don't think he thought that I was going to fall in love with it as much as I did. And I think he surprised himself too when he came to watch me on stage. He was like, "Oh my God, like you look so natural up there." And you look like you were just having so much fun. And he was inspired, and he actually started thinking like, well, maybe I will do one day. And
Yeah.
then he was like, well, you have to win your overall.
Yeah.
I'm not
You
gonna
got
do
to be
it.
somebody first.
Yeah. So for him, I think there were a lot of surprises along the way. Definitely some harder days too. But again, like when we would have those harder days, it wasn't because of prep. I mean, there might have been a couple like moody days if I was hangry, or just kind of navigating through the food. And yes, I was tired, but I was extra exhausted because of all these other factors going on. All these other factors were causing the stress within our relationship.
Yeah,
Um, and I can't truly say that it was because I was in prep. It was all the other factors. I mean, building a house is extremely stressful.
for
Like,
sure.
and he was, I mean, we did owner builder, and so Rich, he subcontracted out everything. So he was at the house every day. He would go to work. He's an electrician. And so he would go to work all day, then go up to the house and be dealing with people at the house. And then I was also the designer. So just us working together on that, and then family issues, and then all the other things that were going on outside caused some stress here and there, but we worked through it. And we're in a great place right now. We're happy, we're very content, we're finally in this place of contentment, which is a really good place to be, and we're just trusting that right now. And as far as being there for Ophelia, I mean, I think I was as present as I could ever be, just by going, I never missed anything. I mean,
Yeah.
just sitting there and watching her. She's my priority. She's my number one priority. My husband is as well. Um, and no matter what was going on outside, I never wanted to show her that, like that all these things were going to make me not be there for her.
And I
So,
think too, kids or not, it's very important that you see this decision to prep as that. It is a choice, and it's a choice that we made. So
yes.
I'm never one, I will quickly pull you out of the mentality of, oh, poor me, like, no, you chose this. If you want out, you can get out.
Yeah, the shows are always going to be there.
Yeah.
You made the decision to do this. If you're not ready to do this, it's okay. We'll do it another time. And that was something that you and I, we had talked about. If you're not ready, especially with the move, and I was like, no, like I'm doing this June 10th. Like this is what's going to happen. And even with the biopsy, we didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, there were 6 weeks of us not knowing what the answer was. Whether or not I was going to have a surgery, or how my lifestyle was going to have to change, if we had to do like hormone replacement, things like that. All of these things were kind of hanging over our head, but we just moved forward every single week that we didn't have an answer, like that I was still going to do the show June 10th. And again, that was all right in the middle of prep, and we were like, okay, halfway. I mean, that was half of my prep that we're talking about. So it's just, you make the choice to do it. You can always step out of it if you need to. And my choice to do that was not their choice. It was not Rich's choice. It was not Ophelia's choice. I made the decision, so I'm going to have to deal with knowing the fact that I'm going to be hungry, knowing the fact that I'm going to be tired, I'm going to be depleted. I have to get up at 4:45 so I can go out and do my cardio for an hour.
Yeah.
I have to make it to the gym today. All of these choices, along with everything else going on, you put yourself in that position and you are either going to do it or you're not. There's no cheating in prep. And you're either in it 150% or you can't do it. And so luckily they were on board, both of them. And it became in the end, it was a really fun thing for all three of us to experience for the first time together. Rich has never been to a show. Obviously my daughter had never been to a show. I had never competed before. So it was a really fun thing to experience together, and coming home with just such like a high, knowing that like, okay, I want to do it again. And that they were like, when is your next show, Mom? Like, we're so excited. We can't wait to see you again. So it just became something that was like, whoa, like Mom is a bodybuilder. Mom is strong. Mom can do these things. Mom is, superwoman in my daughter's eyes. Like, I want to be like her. And that's all I want for her to see. And I want her to look at me as like her inspiration, because she is my greatest inspiration.
Right.
I look at her some days and I'm just like, gosh, like I wish I was dedicated as you. And she's a little cheerleader. I don't think I ever told you this story, but like it was about 2 weeks before my show. She was trying out for the cheer team that she's on right now, and she was so excited the night before. And the day of, she wakes up and she's like, Mom, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And I was like, okay, well, what's going on? Like, you were so excited last night. Like, what's happening? Can you tell me what's going on? And she's like, I'm really nervous. And I was like, okay, so it sounds like you have a lot of worry. You have a lot of worry going on in your body. And I was like, can I tell you something? Let me tell you what Mommy is feeling too. And I told her about how nervous I was to be getting on stage in 2 weeks. And I was like, Mommy is feeling nervous about getting on stage, but you know what? I've worked so hard going to the gym, and I have built these muscles because this is what, it's about. And I feel strong, and I have dedication, and I've worked so hard, and I'm nervous, but I'm not going to give up just because I'm nervous. What I'm going to do is I'm going to channel my nerves, and I'm going to say something different. I'm going to say, you know what? I'm not worried. I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to give it my best. I'm going to do my best. And that's all I can do in that moment. And whatever happens, happens. So I said to Ophelia, I was like, you take those nerves, you take that worry, and you just turn it off, or you channel it differently. Say, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do my best. Take a big deep breath, just go out there, just do your moves like you've never done them before. And in the end, all you know is that you did your best. And she did. She went out there and she had fun. It was a fun experience. And I was just so proud of her. And so it's like, where you're able to do these things together, even though she's this amazing young little girl. But I truly think that her seeing me go through things like this is what inspires them, and it gives them that will and that dedication. And she is so dedicated to, she comes home after an hour and a half of practice and she's still tumbling for like another
I know.
And it's like, I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Are you
That's
tired?
sweet. I love that.
Yeah. So it's like it's just being able, like I said, to have that experience with her in all these ways that I don't know if I would have been able to connect with her if it wasn't for going through this process.
Yeah.
And giving her some inspiration. It's a blessing. This whole process and prep and doing these shows has been a true blessing in more ways than I ever thought it was going to be. It went from just a bucket list thing to, okay, like this is like my life now. Like, I'm more than bodybuilding. We have talked about that, but I am way more than bodybuilding and bikini competitions. But it's a part of my life now. And I'm so excited to see where, we can go with this, and how it's going to benefit my family too. So
that was good. That was a good answer. All right. Are you ready for the last question about prep?
Yes.
Let's see. I'm gonna wrap up with this one of what words of wisdom do you have for anyone in their first prep?
Oh, definitely just dedicate yourself. If you're not going to do anything at all, just give it your just seriously just give it your best. You can go in and you can have absolutely no idea what you're walking into. I really didn't have much of an idea of what I was getting myself into, but being you have to be open to it. You have to be open to taking advice. Find a coach that you can trust. Be open to and receptive to what they are telling you and just trust the process. There are going to be ups and downs. You're going to have days where you're going to see the scale go up. There's going to be days when the scale goes down, but you also can't just rely on the scale. You have to look at your pictures, talk to your coach, and then you guys figure out a plan together.
Yeah.
It's a journey, and you have to be willing to go along and go for the ride, because that's what it is in the end. It's a ride.
Yeah.
It really
Okay.
is. Yeah. Day by day, truly, it's day by day, sometimes hour by hour.
Yeah, this
but
is true. All right, so we're gonna move on now to show day. I have a couple questions for here. Number one question is just give us a brief recap on how your first show went.
So my first show, I competed. It was the Sun City Showdown, and it was my first show. So I competed in 3 different categories. I competed in true novice, and then I was in the open class for my height. So I'm 5'3", so I think it was 5'3" to 5'4", that one. And well, I'm happy because I actually booked my room for 2 nights. That's another thing I would say is book your room for 2 nights, especially if you have that like 4 or 5 hour break in between prejudging and like finals. Like being able to go back to the hotel room in between was it was a huge difference than sitting there for all that time. Because then you start to you get in your head about things too. But I learned a lot. Again, not knowing what to expect, but I was able to have you there, even though you're across the country. Like I was able to call you or just be like, "This is what happened. This is what I did." How does my makeup look, or just something like that. Being able to communicate with you was huge. So yeah, and I mean, you get up, you go and get your tan done, you go get your makeup done, you go check in, and then you just kind of wait around. And we have a system, we have a schedule of how when are we going to eat our pump snack, when to pump, what am I pumping at this specific time, sending you the show day schedule. It's very much involved, more involved than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But
and I do, we work ahead of time on making sure you've got your tan booked, making sure your makeup's booked, making sure your suit cut is right. So,
posing with
focus on
you.
all the things. And then you wound up taking home second, was it?
First in true novice.
Yeah.
Second in novice, and then I got 5th in the open.
Yeah.
And then my second show, I got second in novice again, and then 5th in the open again too. So I brought home medals for all of it early, so which was a very great surprise. But I feel like we truly brought the best that we could bring, and you just don't know who's going to show up that day. My second show, I was truly shocked that I did as well as I did, comparing myself to the other gals that were there. There were a lot of more like younger girls that were pretty stacked. But they look at the full package, and you have to bring the full package. And so, we came in, going back to my first show, they said that they wanted me, leaner, a little bit leaner in the glute ham tie-ins. So that's what we did. There was a 2-week break. And that's what we did. I don't think I ever worked as hard in those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
than I
Push.
than I ever did. Yeah, we dug very deep, and I definitely questioned myself. I was like, "What am I doing here? Why am I doing this to myself?" But again, I dedicated myself to doing that second show, and I wanted to do it, and we did fairly well. But I think during the process, we learned that I had lost a little bit of muscle mass, especially in my glutes, because they wanted me leaner. And sometimes when that happens, you lose some muscle if they want you to come in leaner. And I think we struggled a little bit with, well, not struggled, but we just we peaked differently than we did the first show.
Yeah.
Um, sorry, did I cut out?
No.
Okay. We peaked differently than we did the first show. So it's a learning process.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, I don't, what do you think that we could have maybe done differently than the first
Honestly,
show?
I don't like to look back on shows even and say that we could have done anything differently. I think
Yeah.
that it was a great, I always like to have my athletes do their first show, get feedback and turn around and do another rather than
Mhm.
just doing one unless it's a bucket list type thing, then I fully support that. And I think that we made the improvements that they asked for. At that point, it was about taking a true off season and coming back with more fullness.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it was. That was our feedback after the second show, and I feel like we're doing a pretty good job. Feeling
yeah,
nice and full these days.
yeah. All right. So, I have two more questions here on the prep line of things. How did you
Mhm.
can keep this one kind of brief, but how did you overcome show day jitters?
Uh, well, I had a pretty I had a dance background. So when I was younger, I remember that feeling when you're backstage. And I mean, you as a ballet dancer would probably, you would, recognize this feeling. You get that really like deep gutted like butterflies.
Yeah.
And but the second you stepped out on stage, it was gone, and you just like channel those nerves into your routine, and you just kind of go out there, and it's just a totally different experience, right? Than you thought, like that it was going to be back when you're sitting there backstage waiting for your turn.
Mhm.
So I, in my head, was already thinking that was kind of maybe what it was going to be like, and it was like, God, I remember like I felt like I was going to throw up, like standing
Yeah.
back there. I'm like, oh God, please don't trip in my heels. Like that's the last thing I need. Like maybe I should have gotten the heels with the strap around my ankles. No, I don't fall. But I got the mules, and I was like, well, I have no choice but to rock these mules now. Like, let's go out
Yeah.
there and just see what happens. But definitely I had that same feeling, and I knew, and it was the second that I took that first step where the judges could see me, I was like, game face.
Yeah.
Like nerves went away, and it just that's what it did. I just channeled it differently.
I think
Yeah, you're
for a
gonna do
lot of us,
good.
whether you're a ballet dancer or a former cheerleader or, whatever it may be,
Mhm.
seeing the parallels there. We all have those nerves. And typically when you get out on the field or when you get out on the stage, they go away.
They do. They do. You channel it differently. You like use your nerves to your advantage almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
All right. So post prep questions.
mhm.
Now, Jolie, I posted a transformation on you on my Instagram page the other day. And so I know a lot of people have seen that and are very intrigued by just how tight you've kept things post prep. You
Mhm.
reversed beautifully. So talk about some of the things you found extremely beneficial and almost your non-negotiables in this reverse.
Well, having non-negotiables throughout prep is essential. Like, okay, you have the list of the things that you are absolutely have to do that day. It doesn't change after your show. Yeah, you have that Saturday night meal after your show. You can have well, in my case, we had an intuitive eating day after, but then it was right back to my normal routine. We set my macros, and that is what I stuck to. Again, just using whole foods, not a lot of processed foods, and well, really no processed foods, and I don't really ever eat that to begin with anyway. It's just not something that's ever really been in my diet. But sticking to the plan, you have to stick to the plan. And that for me, cardio was still kind of high, but my cardio was very high pre-show and specifically that second show. So we knocked it down a little bit, but I think it was like 15 minutes or so. But yeah, focusing on that and just sticking to the routine was huge for me. Food was a big indicator, counting my food, and then also knowing, okay, yeah, I'm going to stick to my plan, but I know that I have one untracked meal this weekend. I'm going to go and I'm going to go have my burger and my fries and maybe a little bit of froyo after. So that was like, I knew that I had that coming. That was kind of like, oh, okay, I'm strict right now, but yes, I can go and I can have that, but I know I'm going to get up and I'm going to go crush legs the next day.
Yeah.
I had to learn a different mindset, a different prep mindset.
Yeah.
And there was one week where I was like, I was struggling with this, was switching, like, flipping the switch. You're not focusing on the scale so much anymore. In prep, you're weighing yourself every day. You're wondering, okay, I didn't get enough sleep. I didn't drink enough water. This is why the scale is this way. Post show, when you're reversing, you can't focus on the scale because it's going to go up, it's going to go down. For me, reversing meant I lost a couple more pounds than I did post show because your metabolism is going absolutely insane. It's like, ooh, food. And I was soaking up all of the food that I was eating because we jumped at such a significant range in carbs. The food was just like running through me and I lost more weight. So I was like, it's just, you have a different mindset.
Well, and I think too, there's a lot of talk about the fact that post show, you're a lot of girls, their goal is no longer to get on stage. So they don't have this time specific goal. And you may think, I can deviate for 3 or 4 days and then just get back to it. You won't. And the quicker you just bite the bullet and adhere to cardio and to macros, the quicker you're going to be able to lower your cardio to increase your macros. It's like the sooner you just dive in and continue that process, and the more adherent you are, the more flexibility you're going to get. You like buy your time essentially. And I think that in and of itself, just your adherence to it, even with your untracked meals, you have 2 untracked meals right now per week. And because you don't go out and eat like an asshole, right? You eat like somebody who cares about their health, you're maintaining 4 to 5 pounds post show. Your focus still, you're not staying up until 2, 3 a.m. You're still getting up in the morning and doing your fasted. You're eating primarily whole foods. You're managing your stress, like all the things that you did in prep that mattered, your stomach vacuums, you're doing those. And so as a result, you're staying tight, but it doesn't go without all of the non-negotiables.
Right. Exactly. It's like the mindset is still there, but you also have to be accepting of everything that comes with it while you're reversing. The lines are going to go away a little bit. I mean, in some cases they're going to go away more. It depends on your body and how your body is adapting to everything else that comes with off season. But yeah, you have to be open-minded. You have to talk to your coach about how you're feeling. And on the days, like, because I get to check in with you every week now. In prep, especially that last month, I felt like I think we were talking like every single day, checking in with you every day. And now I'm like, okay, I talk to Maddie once a week. I'm going to tell her all these things that happened during this week. I'm going to tell her exactly how I'm feeling. And yeah, there are days in an off season when you're like, oh, okay, like this is hard. I feel like this is a harder off season when you're reversing than it is when you're in prep some days, because your body is changing. You have to gain the weight, you have to gain a little bit of fat in order to be healthy, and hormones come into play. We went and we had my blood work done. We learned a lot. We thought our hormones were okay, but in the end, because this is what happens during prep, your hormones are going to be really low. And so now we're doing the things that we need to be doing to get my hormones back in check. And so, and I've been feeling quite differently and a lot better. But you have to do all of these things in order to know what's going on with your body and how it's going. You can't have a good off season. You can't have a good prep without a good off season. And by doing these things, that's how you're gonna have a good prep. And there's really there's no cutting corners. If you're gonna do this sport, you can't cut corners, whether you're in prep or when you're in the off season. So, and
I think
it's dedication.
You just kind of touched on what my next question, a couple of my questions were. One of them was, talk about how you've kept the same drive that you had in prep post show. And something there that maybe you didn't touch on was, our feedback was literally to grow. And so what I do myself and what I like for my athletes to do is see that as your new stage date, right? Like your feedback is the tangible goalpost that we now put in the ground and we're now striving towards. It may no longer be a show. We're not chasing leanness, but the feedback for your next show, your prerequisite to win that overall is grow. So now we're laser focused on growth. And I think having identifiable goals and then having a coach that's matching you with this is what we're looking for. We're looking for glute growth, and measurements to be changing here. We're looking for consistent PRs. We're looking for maybe a little bit of soreness that you haven't had, whatever that may be. So you have those metrics and things that aren't focused on the scale, that aren't focused on, weight coming down or getting smaller.
It is. It's a different mindset because it's like going back to what you said, it's like when you're in prep, you have that end date.
Yeah.
Now we don't have an end date. We don't really know. I mean, we know it's okay, spring, but we don't know yet. The schedule hasn't come out yet. So you're just kind of at first feel like you're like in limbo. Well, how much more weight am I going to gain? What am I going to look like? And in prep, you have an idea of what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
But now you don't really. We're just seeing, okay, how is my body going to adapt to food this week? Can I push a little bit more food? How are your hormones this week? Like all of these things that we check in on inside mentally. Where are you at mentally this week? It's a learning process. So.
And I think too, we focus on, I know we send each other pictures like filling out our clothes that we wear outside of the gym, like our street clothes. And it's like an exciting win. I think that one of my questions for you was, how do you overcome like seeing the shreds disappear? And I think that a lot of times it's very tough because like we see ourselves in a very different frame of view when we're in prep. And so on the other side of prep, seeing those shreds disappear, it's important to like put on normal clothes and like be able to fill them out a little bit better and like go out and socialize and certainly celebrate with your coach or find a coach that's going to celebrate big ass PRs, right? Like things that need to be highlighted. Those shouldn't be skipped over in an off season because it's really easy I think to lose momentum there.
Yeah. And we talk about goggles
when
we're in prep, and it's like when you are looking at yourself in the mirror, you see one version of yourself, but everybody else sees another version of you, and your coach is the one that's going to be like, this is what we're looking at, you need to trust it, like, and you have that self-doubt that just comes with it. And especially when you are seeing those lines disappear, and I understand now why some women in particular, that can go a very deep, dark route for them. And they don't ever kind of want to come out of staying stage lean. It is not a healthy place to stay in. And
why we run labs. It makes things a little bit more.
Yes.
We got to lose the lines,
Yes, we have to lose the lines. We have to, we need more fat on your body, more, you need more on you in order to get your hormones back on track. So that way, if you lost your cycle, you get it back. You need to be at a healthy homeostasis within yourself and your body. And it's not a sustainable thing. I had someone ask me the other day, well, how does it feel to like finally have your dream body? Or when I was in prep, and I was like, this is not my dream body. Like, I don't feel like I'm 107 pounds right now.
Mhm.
I came from being 100 and, 6 weeks ago, I was this much weight. And now I'm 107 pounds. I'm not supposed to be like this for a long time. Like, and it got to the point, especially when we were started reversing, and I dropped even more weight. I think I was like 105 pounds one day. I was like, whoa. I looked at myself in the mirror and I said to myself, you need to gain more weight.
Yeah.
Like, and people are gonna make comments to you. I had family members be like, hey, what's going on? And I'm like, I'm trying, I promise I'm eating all this food, but it's just
Yeah. It's coming
like,
up me.
I'm like, I'm trying. But it just takes time. We're talking now 3 months out, and I'm just starting to fill out like my pants again.
Yeah.
Not quite, but I don't think I think there's some pants that I'm gonna have to get rid of, because we're talking like I'm 10 pounds lower than I was when we first started. So I still have those pairs of pants in my
And your
closet,
calories are actually higher.
they are higher. I know people are like, people that understand macros are like, what are your macros at? And I'm like, oh, I'm eating 305 grams of carbs a day. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
And that just comes with cutting and reversing, and your body adapts. And so yeah, I'm eating more than I've ever eaten before my entire life, I think. And yes, I still have those hard days, especially with my hormones kind of getting back on track. And I look at myself and I'm like, ooh, I feel pretty sluggish today. But this morning I woke up and I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe my body is adapting a little bit to this extra food. It usually takes, every time we bump up the food, it takes me a couple of weeks of feeling kind of crappy, like just full and like a little bit of like bloated, but that just, you have to get uncomfortable in order to see change.
Yeah.
And I changed my mindset and be like,
Well, and you
okay,
actually have to train hard. Like you can't
yeah,
just eat the food and then train the same. Like
right,
that's which we're so used to in prep training, like to get a pump and just kind of going through the motions, that for me that was huge. Like I literally forgot how to train until failure because I was in prep for a calendar year. So
yeah.
actually learning how to like train until I couldn't push the weight up anymore was like it took me probably 6 weeks to get the hold of that, hang of that.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, I'm sure, especially when you're prepping for that long.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you, like going back to what you said, you have to change the way you're thinking. Okay, I have 20 extra grams of carbs that were just added. Okay, well, I can now go to the gym, and I was doing 10 reps only like last week when I was doing this exercise. Now I'm able to do 12, maybe try to do 13. And you're like, okay, well, I can do that. Maybe I'll do an eccentric motion on this one, or maybe I can pump the weight up and see what happens.
Yeah.
It's, you use it to your advantage. You have to progress in the gym as you are progressing with your food. And I think that was key for me, is I'm consistently seeing PRs every workout, every week, whether it's 1 pound more or 1 rep more, or just slowing down the motion and focusing on the eccentrics. Because the food has gone up so much, I'm also pushing myself just as hard as the gym. And I think that that's why my weight, if you're looking at the scale, has stayed significantly on the lower aspect, and I'm staying somewhat lean.
Yeah.
Even though I do have, I'm thinking I'm about 8 or 9 pounds up from the second show
Yeah.
now. And that's like what, like 6 pounds up from my first show. So if you're looking at the scale range, yeah, I mean, I'm still in a good spot. So
Yeah. And we know that you're going to be heavier at your next show, undeniable.
yeah,
So that's just
yeah.
a reference point.
Mm-hmm.
So wrapping up here, I have a couple questions that I'm just going to ask. I think I have like 3. First one is to a mom who might say I'm too old for that, or my skin just doesn't look the same, because I hear that a lot, is like, I think I missed my window to compete. What do you have to say?
I say you're never too old or too, or have had too many kids to do this, or
I think a
just,
lot of women would be surprised what they see when they go backstage.
oh my gosh. I mean, I was, and
everything is back there. I mean, it's not.
I mean, you name it, it's back there. I mean,
yeah, you have women that get on stage in their 50s and 60s,
and they look. You would never guess that some of the most like those women have had several children. You know, even I just say like it doesn't matter how old you are. You are capable if you put your mindset, if you put your mind to doing something, you are capable of doing anything you put your mind to.
yeah.
Whether that just means you want to step on stage one day, or you just want to take control of your life and have some healthier eating habits, like why not? You only have one life to live your best damn life and go do something that you want to do. And do it, like stop talking about it and just go and do it. And to any mom out there, I just say, especially if you want to do this sport, like give yourself something that is for you. We sacrifice so much of ourselves to be a mom or to be a wife or to be a grandma. And it's the best part. It's also one of the hardest parts of our lives. But why not give yourself something that is strictly for you? Because it's all about you, and it's all about how far you can push yourself. How far can you push your body, your mindset, what you are capable of doing, and you will surprise yourself, and you're going to be stronger than you ever thought that you were going to be in all aspects of your life. And you are going to realize how grateful you are going to become for all these different aspects of your life. So I mean, that can go for anybody, not just moms. I just say, like, if you want to do it, whether you're a guy watching this or you want to go out there and you want to do it, just take control of something. This is all about you and keeping yourself healthy and pushing yourself to what you can do. And there's no greater thing than that. So that's all I gotta say about that.
So yeah. Okay, I have 3 more questions for you.
Yes. I have a question for you.
Okay. Do you think that, well, I guess the red ones are for me?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
that's right.
okay. So I have one more question for you. Do you think that PEDs are necessary for building muscle at your age or at any age?
I think that it depends on your goals.
You're natural.
Yeah. And I think that in this world of bikini alone, it has grown so much. And you look at the women that are in the IFBB Pro and you're just like, I mean, I know that I can never go up on stage and be like, and compared to those women and do well without taking some type of PED. And that's just the way that it is. I think that it's necessary depending on how far you want to go. You know, I don't know if that's something that I would necessarily want to do I don't know so much about it. I don't know enough about it. I don't know the science.
I think that's key with things like that is making sure that you're informed. Also make sure that if you're a novice competitor that you truly have tapped out your genetic potential. Like a lot, you can build a lot of muscle in 5 or 6 years as a natural athlete. But
it's just going to take longer.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, I'm only into year 1 and I you know, I don't, and I feel like at the pace that, you know, I'm going, I don't know where I see myself going in the next 5 years. I'm just kind of taking it year by year and just kind of going along for the ride. I think if you put too many expectations on yourself, then it can truly ruin the experience for you. You have to just go into each show and just bring your best package every time. And take those changes. What do the judges want to see from me this time? Make the changes and then go back and then see what they say and grow. Okay, so now I'm going to take some time off. I'm going to grow a little bit, whether that means you do it for, you know, I've seen people do like a mini growing period, whether it's just like 3 months or and then they go back on stage straight into prep. Are they going to grow that much? Probably not. So they probably need to do a lot longer, 6 months to a year, in order to see some significant growth. but it's just going to take time if you want to do it naturally, and you have to be okay with that. And if you want to do it quicker, then yeah, find out more about it. Talk to your coach about it. Talk to some other people in the industry about it and get their opinions and find out more science behind it. And if it's for you and then great. But I don't think people should be judgmental of those that want to do that.
Yeah.
So everybody has goals and aspirations. And if that's what they want to do, then great.
Yeah.
No judgment here.
I agree.
So,
Information, education, that's the key there.
yeah,
All right.
1000%. So,
Interview me. What 2 questions do you have for me?
I want to know, well, I guess for you, where do you see yourself where do you see yourself in 5 years within the sport as a competitor? And then also as a coach, like where do you see your coaching business going?
Yeah. So, as a competitor, my goal is very simple. Right now, my goal is this year, wrapping up this year, actually celebrating holidays since I couldn't last year. So Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and then January 1st, I will celebrate my New Year's. I will have my New Year's Day brunch, and then I will start prep. Our goal right now is to do Junior USA's, which is a show in May, and turn pro there. Fingers crossed. That is like, I'm manifesting that to happen because I really don't want to wind up doing 3 or 4 national shows this year. I also have been toying with the idea of a part-time nurse practitioner program to get my NP so that because right now we work in affiliation with an HRT clinic, but the past 3 to 5 years of just like coaching and knowledge and all that I've learned, I have leveraged them so much that I really think that I want to be able to kind of do it myself. I'm very much like I want full autonomy, and I would love to be able to not have to work through people to order labs and hormones and things like that, knowing just how significant and important it is in a sport like this. Furthermore, I don't want to be the only coach on my team for over the next, 3 to 5 years. So I am looking at growing and expanding our coaching team. And I know that you and I have been in talks about that and what that might look like. And I would ultimately bring somebody from within. And you and I have just worked together so well and so closely for so long. And I feel like this was a really good opportunity too, for people to kind of get to know you as a person and just your heart, not only as Jolie, but as what it would look like for you to be a coach. And I think that you have it, you have the knowledge, the background, the experience. So now it's just kind of a timing thing, we, with coaching clients and things like that, it ebbs and flows. And I'm just really kind of preparing myself in the back end systems and then waiting for another flow. And as soon as, it happens, then we will not be one anymore. We will be a team too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that you and I, do work extremely well together. We have this relationship, that we're very lucky to have. So, I mean, I'm definitely excited. I'm excited for where you're coaching to where you're going to take it. You're just going to take it to the next level. I just know that you and like Team Mpowered is going to go very far, in this realm. And I think it's important for people to know that right now it is not just you. You do have this team of other experts behind you. And because I think sometimes when people hear the word coach, they're like, okay, well, what are they going to do? And I'm like, no, those that I have referred you to, I'm like, no, you just need to have a discovery call with Maddie. And then she will explain everything to you. And those that I have sent your way, I feel have that, they have the same feeling as I did with you. And it's nothing but comfort, and it's nothing but knowledge. You have so much knowledge to give. And it's truly a beautiful thing to just sit there and listen to you talk. sometimes. And I'm just like, God, like this girl is just like a freaking sponge. And she, oh, it's just like spilling out of her, but you soak it all up. It's amazing. It's amazing. And you should just be so proud of yourself because I'm proud of you. So
Well,
you're welcome.
Josie, thank you so much for hopping on this call and for
Thanks
just
for
like
having me.
sharing your heart and talking with us today. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for you to step back up on stage and to see what happens over the next year.
I'm excited too. I thank you so much for having me. This has been so fun, and I'm just excited to be, working with you in the future ways.
So that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's very special video, and thank you, Jolie, for participating. I hope to see you guys next week in a future video. I have some plans to do some more educational content, and then of course my seasonal updates as I myself am in my off season and hoping to obtain that pro card next year in just 7 months, you guys. Time is flying. But be sure that you tune back into the channel each week. Please, it helps me so much if you like, comment, and subscribe. And if any one of you are interested in coaching, the link is always down below in the description. Head over to my Instagram page. I love meeting with and chatting with each and every one of you. It makes my day. It's so cool getting to know you guys from this YouTube channel. And I'm just grateful for all of you guys every single week and your continued support. Have a great one.